If you think the problem in Florida isn't as bad as California, I'm going to explain to you analytically why the situation in the state of Florida is far worse than the situation in California. People tend to just repeat everything they hear on the evening news, but never actually go to these places. They blame everything on politics without ever thinking for themselves. I drove to California to see it with my own two eyes. I didn't need CNN or Fox News to tell me what I needed to believe. This is one of the stupidest comments I have ever seen on my channel. Looks like El Paso, Texas, with millions of borders invaders setting up camps here. I was in El Paso and there was no homeless camps everywhere. There were no homeless people. If you look at El Paso analytically, it has one of the lowest murder rates of any city. It has one of the lowest drug overdose rates of any city. News outlets are demonizing the city, and the stupid people repeat everything they hear on their favorite news outlets. I'm giving you real-life analytics and numbers from government sources, and I'm giving you real-life travels to the places that are relevant. So I recently did a video in Pasco County, Florida, which has one of the highest drug overdose rates in the entire state. I went inside of the homeless camps, and on the video, 31 people blamed California for being worst. Now, let's break down analytics from the state of Florida and the state of California to find out which state really has a problem. Clearly know that the state of California has a much larger homeless population than the state of Florida. For one, the population of California is almost double. The overdose death rate in California is 26 out of every 100,000. In the state of Florida, it's 37. That means that the state of Florida has a considerably larger portion of its population that is dying from overdose. 1.4 times more overdose deaths in the state of Florida than the state of California. Even the state of Alabama now has more overdose deaths in the most recent analytical information coming out, which is interesting because both the state of Alabama and the state of Florida have openly criticized California for having a drug problem. Murder rates are also printed out by the CDC, and as we can see in yellow, California's murder rate is lower than Florida's, and since 2011 there hasn't been a single year where Florida doesn't have a higher murder rate than California. And many states like Alabama, who've been vocal about California, have a murder rate that is almost 3 times higher than California, easily 2 times higher, which goes to show that the claim that California has a crime problem is very difficult to prove by the analytics that gauge things like murders, crimes that are definitely not easy to hide. Both of these states' murder rates are very consistent, and both states have a huge population, so you're getting a really round picture that murder rates are not drastically higher in California. In fact, they're actually less. It's very difficult to draw a real picture of which state has a worse crime problem simply because you're not gauging them by the same measure. But murder rates are very hard to deny. So when we look at these analytics, more people are getting killed in Florida by drugs and more people are being killed in Florida by violence. So how can we play off the narrative that it's California that has a problem? When I visited California and I compared it to what's going on back home in Florida, to me it looks exactly like the same exact thing. So if you grabbed all the homeless people in Florida and put them in one skid row, that Skid Row would be bigger than the Skid Row in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles metropolitan area has about 13 million people. That's about more than half of Florida's population. That would be like if Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami were all one city in one place, and their homeless populations were all centered around the downtown of that area. Then you would understand exactly why Los Angeles Skid Row is so large. But when you actually compare numbers, it's not that big of a difference. For one, the weather in California is absolutely perfect. While in Florida, it is absolutely unbearable to be on these streets. While we were in California, we almost ended up having to sleep in our car one night because the road in both directions had got washed away by a rainstorm. In circumstances like this, it's absolutely normal for people who are not homeless to have to sleep in their vehicles. So we've got on the road, we've got rocks already. Imagine if you're in that lane, those rocks fall over your vehicle. Plus you can see the ocean. You can see there's rocks on the road here. But we might have to camp in the car if it's blocked on there. We might have to find a spot and camp in the car. The good thing is we got that blanket back there. But now they said raining and fog. Dang it, man, I can't see anything. It's just terrifying. Which would never happen to me in Florida, ever. I've never had to sleep in a vehicle in Florida, but when I was in California, we almost had to sleep in our vehicle because the road got washed away. So because of the weather, it is more common for people in California to have to involuntarily end up sleeping in a car. So the state has to overlook when people are sleeping in a car because there's many weather inclements that can cause people not to be able to make it to their destination. Therefore, the homeless problem in Florida is more attributed to addiction and economical situations, while in California, the geographical and climate tends to attract a lot of people because being homeless here is a lot more comfortable. When I read through the comments on my YouTube channel, everybody wants to blame California's homeless problem solely on the area's politics. However, when you sit back and actually analyze why California has a bigger homeless problem, the geography plays a larger role. For one, California's building codes have to be up to earthquake standards. This is very expensive and very complicated. The state of California has had a huge explosion of population, and if California was as affordable as Florida, its population would actually be probably closer to 80 million people. Therefore, California understands that it has to overregulate its building to ensure that the state doesn't continue to grow because of its landscape and other geographical features. Florida is able to expand more than California, and California has to really hold on to their development. You really start to dissect these issues and dive deeper into why California has a homeless problem. You're going to realize that the geography plays a huge role. Nobody blames West Virginia for having the absolute highest drug overdose rates because we understand that the geography of the place makes it incommunicated and makes it perfect for these types of things to unfold. However, everybody wants to blame California for its problems on political reasons when perhaps geographical situations and weather and climate plays a huge role into why people in California can more comfortably be homeless. And I can assure you, if the people in California who are homeless found themselves in the Ocala National Forest in the summer when the heat humidity are combined at over 100% apiece, they would get their crap together very quickly. Needless to mention that most people that go to California go to Beverly Hills or Hollywood, areas that have huge concentrations of homelessness, and they don't really get to see the real California. They just go to Hollywood and they think that's the nice side of California, but they don't realize that today Hollywood is actually among one of the worst places in California. People that are from Los Angeles know this, but people that travel to California think, oh wait, this is the best place in the whole state. In reality, it's actually among the worst places. Only tourists get to see this, and assume that they're looking at the best California has to offer. So because of California's geography, its weather, and its natural disasters, housing expense here is very high. But it's not just the housing expense. States like Florida, New York, and California that have higher population densities and larger metropolitan areas are naturally going to have, by percentage, more homeless people. Has nothing to do with politics, has more to do with agglomeration of people in large metropolitan areas.
San Francisco's horrible. They're gonna break into your car.
So when I went to San Francisco, I went to the most notorious neighborhood, the Tenderloin, and I walked around with a camera on a stabilizer, but nobody actually hurt me or was aggressive towards me. They were actually, I think, more scared of me than I was of them. I walked around their neighborhood with a freaking camera. Literally didn't see any poop on the road. They said there's poop all over the road. There's needles all over the road. We walked around San Francisco downtown, the worst neighborhood supposedly, and I didn't see any of that. However, let's hop back over to Pasco County, where I actually did see poop on the sidewalks. Here's a shopping plaza in Pasco County, Florida. We know what we're looking at here, and as you look through this you can clearly see what's going on the sidewalks. Now, they told me that is something that I was going to see in San Francisco, but I walked all over San Francisco through the Tenderloin, which is supposed to be the worst part of the city, and I didn't see any of that. But here we are in rural Pasco County, Florida, and as you look on the sidewalks, you can see what they're being used as. Neither did I see a single needle in San Francisco, but however, here in Pasco County, Florida, you can actually find needles outside of businesses. I understand that your salary at a Florida State prison isn't going to be enough for you to visit California. Instead of actually traveling and seeing things for themselves and understanding what these famous Skid Row places are like with their own eyes, they would rather sit at home, watch TV, and never get out and see the world for themselves, just repeating everything that they hear on their television. These are people who will never get to see a freaking whale blow its freaking nose 40 foot up in the air on the coast of California because instead of buying a plane ticket, they bought themselves a freaking TV and tuned in to Fox News. All the hours that they spent watching Fox News, if they had got a side gig doing and delivering food to people or something, they could have used that money to go to California and play with freaking sea otters and seals and have a freaking elephant seal fart in their face. All the time that they spent on YouTube commenting about how horrible California is, if they had just spent that time working and saving money, they could get a trip to Los Angeles and get to see the beautiful city. The saddest part about today's documentary is that these people are living in some of the most messed up places in the country with the most overdoses, the most murders, the most crimes, yet they think that places like California that are beautiful and majestic and lifetime experiences for those who are lucky enough to go there are actually the places that have a problem. I even walked around homeless camps in Fresno, California. They simply just didn't care what the crap I was doing walking right through their homeless camps with a camera. I think a lot of people in Florida are really in denial. They want to blame everything that's wrong with the world on politics, yet fail to see that we're all human. The government is not going to help these people, and the government's not going to offer a solution. But what homeless people in our community do provide is opportunity for us regular civilians to show the kindness that we have. The same people who complain about affordable housing are the ones that are getting rid of the people that are building the affordable housing. A country that throws away and expels the ones who come here to work hard and build the houses that we need for our families, all the while sheltering, protecting, and giving public assistance to people who are convicted felons. If you think the government is going to find solutions for our homeless population, you have lost your mind. Now, if we were really going to talk about the place with the worst problem analytically by overdose rates, Philadelphia and Pennsylvania seems to have the absolute worst on a very visible level. But it's interesting that nobody really seems to make a political point out of Philadelphia.